late again. We always seem to be a bit late. Why is that?
Welcome to one of the best games of all time. Yeah, I said it. Ratchet and Clank is my favourite franchise, and Going Commando is one of my favourite games in that franchise. So just like my previous video on Ratchet and Clank 1, I'm going to go over the good and the not so good and let you know why you should play it, because, spoiler alert, you should play it. By the way, it's called Ratchet and Clank 2 Locked and Loaded in the UK, but I much prefer the US version of the title, so that's what I'll be sticking to. Ratchet and Clank Going Commando is set about a year after the first game, and the two titular heroes have settled down for a bit, but not for long. During what I'm pretty sure is a live broadcast of a show called Behind the Hero, Ratchet and Clank are kidnapped by the leader of the Megacorp company, which is a manufacturing monopoly across the entire Bogon galaxy, which is a new galaxy we haven't seen before. Mr. Fizzwidget is the guy's name, and he's interesting.
I'm sorry to incapacitate you, but our entire galaxy is in a very precocious situation. I must humbly request your sustenance on a mission of dire urgitude, a mission of superfluous peril, a mission of unequivocal imperitude.
Did that make any sense?
Fizzwidget has heard of Ratchet and Clank's exploits and wants them to find a cute little experiment called the Protopet, which has been stolen by a dupliferous criminal known only as the Thief. They accept, of course. Ratchet gets commando training on the 2-week journey to the Bogon galaxy, while Clank gets access to a sweet new apartment when they arrive. Yeah, that's right, Clank just gets to chill out while Ratchet does all the hard work. Not that I'm complaining, of course. Anyway, tracking down the Protopet proves to be a bit of a wild goose chase. I'd say more, but I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't played the game yet. Instead, I'm going to save it until the end of the video. But I will say that the game is still just as hilarious as the first game. The dialogue is on point in just about every cutscene.
The instructions are in Blargian.
Goodbye.
It says here, tab A goes into slot B. Okay, and then magnetize the graviton matrix, remove your left arm, what? And done.
You do have skills.
You know it.
Also, they made Ratchet kinder to Clank due to complaints that he was too nasty in the original game. Now, he's defensive of his robot buddy.
Hey, who let you in here? Get lost before I flatten your robot into a hubcap.
Touch him, and it's Plasma City!
Oh gosh, you didn't have to yell. Why did he have to yell?
I think it's a great change and shows a nice bit of character growth. And wait, hang on a second, is that Jak and Daxter?
Sorry.
I love this so much. Before we move on, if you're enjoying the video so far, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on future uploads. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, let's talk about Going Commando's gameplay. If you don't know anything about Ratchet and Clank, it's an action platformer where you can jump, climb and swing around while also shooting hordes of enemies with ridiculously powerful weapons. There are hidden bolts to collect, gadgets that help you unlock new pathways, and you have to pay a bunch of NPCs increasingly insane numbers of bolts, which are the game's currency. But this game introduces so much that's new. The big one is strafing, which is immediately noticeable in the very first level of the game. Because of that commando training, Ratchet can now move side to side while firing like any other modern third-person shooter. That means that if you're coming into this off the back of something like Rift Apart, you'll feel right at home. The lack of strafing in Ratchet and Clank 1 was the biggest problem I had with that game, so seeing it taken care of here straight away is fantastic. Next, have a look at the top left corner. You see that? It's an experience bar, and every time you defeat an enemy with a weapon, the bar goes up. When the bar reaches full capacity, the weapon upgrades to a more powerful version. It's Pokemon, but guns. This is something every Ratchet game would include going forwards because it adds so much to the overall adventure. It encourages you to use every weapon in your arsenal, not just ignore them. It gives you a sense of progression as you become more and more powerful. There's also an experience bar here underneath Ratchet's nanotech health segments. When it reaches full capacity, another segment of health is added. That's amazing. You can also find hidden nanotech upgrades in certain places across the galaxy, and they can be tricky to obtain, but they're worth the effort. And what's this? Armor upgrades. The first game didn't even have armor at all. Here there are multiple sets of it, culminating with the Carbonox armor, which is iconic. Thing is, you can't take it off once you buy it, and it covers Ratchet's face in cutscenes, so I didn't purchase it for this playthrough, but it is there and it looks awesome. Now, these improvements to gameplay would mean nothing if the level design wasn't up to scratch, but thankfully it is. It's fantastic. The planets are beautiful to look at, but also fun to explore, with multiple pathways pathways and secrets to find. This one here, No Tack, is just my absolute favourite. The canal city vibe is immaculate, and the music that goes with it just takes me right back to my childhood. It has a Therminator section too, which is pretty cool, pun intended. The Therminator is a gadget that can freeze and defrost water, and this level uses it to good effect. The Therminator doesn't get much use in the game overall, but it's a neat gadget that has a satisfying sound effect whenever it changes the state of the water. There are a few more new gadgets in Going Commando as well, like the tractor beam, which can move certain objects, but I won't spoil all of them. The music, by the way, is once again composed by David Bergeau. He does a phenomenal job, as is the case for all of his Ratchet and Clank soundtracks. It's a right mix of atmospheric and action-packed. I'd use more appropriate descriptions, but I'm not an audio expert, so I'll just finish by saying that I really like it. The next planet I want to talk about is this one, Tadano, home to a Megacorp armory. It has a section right at the beginning where you can watch tourists follow a robotic version of Fizzwidget around an area swarming with mutant squirrels. You can stop at each point on the tour and listen to Fizzwidget talk about Megacorp's history.
This is the ZX-9
Galaxy Cruise rocket.
used to transport our first
Test squirrel, Bobo.
into a black hole. Sadly,
Bobo never returned. He'll always be remembered as one of Megacorp's furry pioneers.
It's so good. Unfortunately, in the PS3 version, none of Fizzwidget's audio plays here at all, so the tours are just completely silent. That's so disappointing, and you can add that to the list of reasons why I'll always prefer the PS2 versions of these games. Another planet that's really cool is Endarko, which is where Clank's apartment is located. The city, Megapolis, which I always find hard to pronounce for some reason, is so clean, so futuristic. There's not a single plant in sight, which is a contrast to Kerwan's Metropolis from the first game. It seems like a metaphor for just how much Megacorp and its cold corporatism has taken over the Bogon galaxy, or something like that. By the way, these grind rail sections returning from the first game are great. They always make me feel like I'm on a roller coaster. But we're not done with Planet Endarko, because it's here that you'll find Slim Cognito, which is one of the best names in the series. It's right up there with Skid McMarks. He runs a shop for illegal weapon mods, which can give Ratchet's weapons various effects like temporary acid damage and being able to lock onto enemies by holding the L2 and R2 buttons. This is what platinum bolts are used for, which are this game's version of gold bolts. In the previous game, gold bolts unlocked gold weapons, but here, platinum bolts unlock these weapon mods. Slim Cognito can also upgrade Ratchet's ship with Raritanium. Wait, what? What do you mean he can upgrade Ratchet's ship? You mean I can actually control Ratchet's ship in space combat arenas that reward me with story progression and a decent amount of bolts? That's right, the first game had a couple of starship dogfight sections that were kind of one and done, but here there are dedicated ship combat levels so they're infinitely replayable. There are only 4 challenges per level, so I do wish there were more, but it's such a cool addition. You can get Raritanium by blasting enemy ships or objects like these ice blocks, and then that Raritanium can be used to improve the ship's lasers, missiles, boost, armor, even paint jobs. I love it. And then there are hoverbike races. These feel a bit like Wipeout. I'm not a huge Wipeout fan, I just haven't played the games that much, but these remind me of what I have played. You can collect boost, pyramids, I guess, and also weapons in some races. They're really fun. I like them more than the hoverboard races in the first game, to be honest. Going Commando also introduces 2 of my favourite upgrades in the series. Behold the glory of the box breaker. This lets Ratchet break everything around him so he can easily collect a ton of bolts. And then, with a new armor magnetizer, he can attract those bolts towards him from a longer distance away. These 2 upgrades together are so satisfying. I won't tell you how to get them, but just know that they're there, and you will want to find them. You kind of have to go out of your way to do so, but it is worth it. You know what else you'll want to find? These combat arenas, which are absolutely awesome. You have to take part in them for the story, but they're built around the tightened up combat system in a way that gives you a chance to let loose. There are a huge number of challenges per arena, plus boss fights. It was such a good addition, in fact, that it became a staple of the series going forwards. Let's look at a few of the weapons now. The 2 you start with are the Lancer and the Gravity Bomb, which do a great job of covering your bases early on. Later, you'll be able to buy the Blitz Gun, which acts as a powerful shotgun, and a rocket launcher called the Mini Rocket Tube. There's also things like the Mini Turret Glove, which spawns little turrets that target enemies, the Lava Gun, which is a gooey version of the Pyrocitor from the first game, and the Bouncer, which fires ridiculously powerful bombs that split into a cluster of smaller bombs. One of my favourite weapons is the Plasma Coil, which is powerful on its own, but when it's fully upgraded is an absolute beast. On top of that, you can find an old Gadgetron store that sells you a few weapons from the first game, and if you have save data from that original game on your memory card, and you bought the weapons there, you can unlock them for free in Going Commando. Nice. You can also get the Rhino 2 for 1 million bolts. Yeah, you heard that right. 1 million bolts. You'll probably only get the funds for it in challenge mode unless you grind in your first playthrough, but damn, once you get your hands on it, it's tough to go back to any other weapon. The Rhino 2 is a monster. It demolishes every enemy, including boss fights. Look at what it does to the thief here. This weapon is the equivalent of a cheat code, and I haven't even mentioned the Zodiac yet, which is even more expensive than the Rhino 2. Let's leave it there because I don't want to spoil what it can do. I don't like it as much as the Rhino 2, but it has its uses. Oh, and do you know the quick select menu? It now pauses the game when you open it. The first game didn't do that, and it could be a little annoying. Here, you can choose weapons without worrying about getting hit, which is a fantastic change. So hey, do you like Super Mario Galaxy? The games, not the movie. Well, look at these. They're spherical worlds that were inspired by the cover of The Little Prince and ants crawling around an apple. I'm not joking about that. Insomniac rarely gets credit for this, so I'll mention it every chance I get. And yes, 2 of these spherical worlds are Giant Clank levels. Giant Clank was introduced late into the first game, so the idea didn't get much screen time, and it doesn't have much screen time here either, but it's still cool that it's back. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of this UFO level because of how relentless it is, but it is what it is. It's still satisfying punching things with massive robot arms. But speaking of Clank, he has his own small Clank levels as well, which expand on his gameplay from the original game. You can order around Gadgetbots, which are called Microbots now for some reason, I guess because they're not made by Gadgetron anymore, and there are new robots too. There's a bridge builder, a weightlifter, and one wielding a massive hammer. They make Clank sections more fun because there are now more options for progression. There aren't many Clank sections though. That's a common theme in this game. It has so much content that I think it was hard for Insomniac to fit it all in. It did only have 10 months of development time after all, which is just crazy to think about considering how good the game is. And that takes us nicely into crystal farming. There are 2 planets in the game that feature open areas with a ton of crystals to collect in exchange for story progression and tons of bolts. The first one is a desert, which is, dare I say, relaxing. The enemies you encounter aren't too difficult and are easily dispatched with your weapons. The second crystal area, well, Moonstone area, is a snowy wasteland, and oh my god, what the heck are these things? There's an interesting story here actually. One of Insomniac's junior programmers had 3 days to make the level because of the aforementioned time crunch. Unfortunately, that meant he didn't have time to properly tweak the difficulty of these snow beast enemies, which means they're absolutely ruthless. They deal a huge amount of damage and never stop spawning to the point where you can get yourself into pretty ridiculous situations. Anyway, new Insomniac employees would complain about the difficulty, and the Yetis became so notorious that this junior programmer was jokingly given the Snow Beast Award for worst thing shipped in an Insomniac game. Poor guy. It was all tongue-in-cheek, but let's have a moment to appreciate the fact that the programmer successfully coded the level in 3 days. Very impressive. One thing I haven't mentioned yet are the hacking gadgets, which are the successors to the Trespasser from Ratchet 1. The first one is the Electrolyzer, which starts a mini-game where you switch the direction of conduits all at once. I think they're quite fun. You really have to use your peripheral vision, and some of them can be quite challenging. The second gadget is the Infiltrator, which can be thrown into the nearest star as far as I'm concerned. I hate this thing. You have to join nodes together in quick succession, choosing the right path each time, or you'd be thrown back to the beginning. But you have to memorize where you've been, and some of these puzzles are so long to the point where they really frustrated me. It feels like a mini-game designed by someone with a photographic memory with no regard for those without one. Or maybe I just suck. Could be that. Like the first game, Ratchet and Clank Going Commando has a special section of the menu that lets you see what skill points you've obtained. You can also unlock cheats with those skill points like Big Head mode. This is both funny and disturbing. Also, if you complete other hidden achievements like beating the final boss, you unlock stuff like this sheep mini game where you control a sheep floating in orbit around a star and you have to try and shoot the other sheep. The other sheep can be controlled by a second player, and I remember my brother and I playing it a few times when we were kids. It was strangely addictive. I love it when games have hidden stuff like this. And I haven't even mentioned challenge mode yet, have I? Like the first game, it's basically New Game Plus, where you get to start the story again but with all your weapons. This time, you unlock the ability to purchase mega weapons, which are even more powerful versions of your current weapons. They're incredibly expensive, but it's okay because there's also a brand new bolt multiplier, which goes up to a maximum of 20 times the more you defeat enemies without getting hit. It makes buying those expensive weapons and the Carbanox armor much less of a chore. Lastly, there's the Insomniac Museum, which is one of the coolest things in any video game. On On planet Bolden, if you go to the top of a fountain at 3 AM, you'll be able to teleport to planet Burbank and enter an in-game museum where you can see content that was cut from Ratchet and Clank 1 and 2. The exhibits are all accompanied by voiceover explanations from the developers, which is so damn cool. I remember this blowing my mind as a kid. It's a great insight into how they develop the game. It also allows you to create your own infiltrator puzzles. Yay! The Insomniac Museum is a reminder of a time when game development was less, I don't know, corporatized. Although the team expanded quite a bit for Going Commando, it was still tight-knit in a way that it seems like modern AAA game development has trended away from. The game's story is a good example of this. For Ratchet and Clank 1 and 2, it was written by the developers themselves with no dedicated writer on board. It was only during the development of Up Your Arsenal, the sequel to this game, that they decided to hire one. It was more common back then for games to have no dedicated writer, but still, it's a testament to how talented the team at Insomniac were that they managed to write such entertaining cutscenes with plots that felt like something straight out of an animated series while also coding the game itself. Going Commando gets a bit more flack for its plot though, so let's talk about it. This is where spoilers start, so if you want to hop off now, that's totally fine. Just know that you should absolutely play this game if you've never touched it before. It's an experience you won't forget. So, the thief. Later in the game, after Ratchet and Clank successfully take the proto-pet from them and give it to Fizzwidget, the thief appears and accidentally reveals her true identity, a Lombax called Angela Cross. Or is she a Lombax? There have been hints in later games that say she is one, but we don't know for sure. There was this massive argument online for years about the fact that she doesn't have a tail, which sounds ridiculous now that I say it out loud. Anyway, from this point on, she becomes an ally. So now the plot switches it up, with Ratchet and Clank trying to tell Fizzwidget that the proto-pet is dangerous because Angela showed them just how aggressive it is. And then they find out that Megacorp wants to clone it and market it as a pet for kids.
Why is Billy sad? Is he cold, hungry, or maybe just...
Oh no! No, take it away!
lonely? No! Introducing the Megacorp Proto-Pet. Your child will shriek with joy when he meets our adorable friend. Want to play ball? So does the Proto-Pet. Need a partner for tag? Go find the Proto-Pet. Up for some cops and robbers?
Help! Police!
So is you-know-who. Just ask Billy.
And every time they try to let Fizzwidget know, he avoids them, so it seems like everything is building up to the revelation that Fizzwidget is the main villain in all this, totally devoid of morals and willing to put kids and families in danger for a quick buck.
This is bad.
All right, just what the is going on?
Yeah, Insomniac decided that they missed Captain Quark's unique brand of comedy late in the game's development, so here he is. They made some behind-the-hero cutscenes between planets to show what he'd been up to after the first game, and long story short, he escaped the Solana galaxy, disguised himself as Fizzwidget, and engineered the Proto-Pet disaster so he could save the galaxy from them, in a desperate attempt to repair his reputation. If you've played the first game, you'll know that he was working with Drek in order to be the spokesperson for his new planet, but was defeated by Ratchet and Clank. He actually tries to frame them for the Proto-Pet disaster here, getting his revenge as well as his reputation back. Or so he thinks. Angela has developed a cure for the original Proto-Pet's aggression using something called the Helixomorph, but Quark puts the battery in upside down so it turns the fluffball into a giant monster. Mommy! After Ratchet and Clank defeat it, Angela fixes the Helixomorph and turns the Proto-Pet into a friendly little guy. Also, the real Fizzwidget turns up. In the epilogue, we see that Quark has become a test dummy for Megacorp as punishment, and Angela is now a firm friend of our heroes that will help them going forwards. Is what I would say if Insomniac hadn't decided to completely ignore her in every game after this point, except for A Crack in Time. And even that is just a brief mention on the radio. It's a Laura all over again. What is it with Insomniac and ignoring well-liked female characters? To be fair, she does appear in the ending of Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, but she's back in her thief outfit for some reason and has no lines. But back to Going Commando's plot. Despite it being a bit of a wild goose chase and the Quark twist being a last-minute addition, I enjoy it. I do wonder what it would have been like if Fizzwidget had been the true bad guy, with the focus being on Megacorp's greed and willingness to put others in danger. But I like Captain Quark, and I think the fact that no one noticed he'd taken Fizzwidget's place is a solid indictment of the company anyway. So soulless that they can't even tell who's running the place. But most of all, it's just fun. More Quark is always a good thing as far as I'm concerned, and it ties nicely into his story arc in the next game, which I'll be covering at a later date. But that's it from me. Ratchet and Clank Going Commando is an exceptional game, and everyone should play it at least once, no matter what type of gamer they are. If you've enjoyed this look back at it, please smash the like button and consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on future uploads. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day or night wherever or whenever you are, and I will see you next time.